life vibrant in every atom, O hidden light shining in every creature, O hidden love embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So, welcome, friends. Today's talk is the second part of the lecture which was taken by our brother B.D. Tendulkar ji, who is the National Lecturer of Indian Section last month. He spoke on the genesis of desire, its control, and sublimation. So today we have the second part, and I'll request Brother Tendulkar ji to please start with this lecture.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Gupta ji. Quite some time has passed since I delivered my first lecture on genesis of desire, control of desires also. I just take a quick review that we have seen how our various senses, five senses, work and how the vibrations stimulate the senses and how those vibrations are conveyed to the physical brain, and this is done by the nerve system, and the physical brain then reflects them into the centers in the astral body. And then there is further transformation of these sensations into feelings, emotions, and uh, from astral body some of the sensations are also transmitted to the lower mental body, and they cause the um, desires. So we see that these three bodies are involved: the physical, the astral, and the lower mental. Um, this is the part which is considered as our personality. Now, when we are thinking of sublimation of desires, we have to take into consideration other principles which constitute the man. Because the desires at the lower level are connected with the physical world mostly, or the lower three planes of consciousness in which the personality works. But that is the very reason uh, the desires remain uh, mostly concerned with worldly matters. Last time, Brother Shailendranath, I think, asked about the question whether desires and wills both can go together, same person. And that time we have clarified that it is the motive power which is there behind the desires, so that the direction is decided by the motive power. So both things don't go together, but through the desire, we can definitely move on to the spiritual wheel because it is um, a development of the vehicles which precedes the functioning of the consciousness, whether at the lower level or higher level. Therefore, desire is essential in the earlier stages of development of the lower vehicles, but there is a need of discrimination as to uh, the point in evolutionary march where we are required to change our direction. If we go on evolving in the same direction, we have seen what happens even with great advancement of science. We have made the life of a man quite comfortable. Science has made wonderful discoveries. Technology has made life exceedingly easy, but this has not really helped us to make man happy. And there perhaps this role of sublimation or desire comes in. It is an energy and more depends upon how we use the energy. We cannot blame the energy or the misuse of the energy by the user. It is an instrument, and how we use the instrument is, is dependent on the user. So we must learn from the genesis of desire that when we develop our mental instrument and um, also the astral body, because they together in association act and produce the desires and thoughts. Desires um, lead to thoughts in the earlier stages when the desire element is more dominant. Thoughts can um, monitor the desires when the intellect becomes more evolved. So, at present stage of evolution, as I mentioned earlier, in the large majority of mankind, the astral vehicles are more or less well developed, while the mental vehicle, our mind, is in a developing state. We are passing through that stage, and therefore there is uh, a need for deliberate attempt to um, use some kind of mental discipline so that we can utilize our mental energy in effective manner and see how we can be good energy managers, utilizing the energy to the optimum level by making the best use of the available time and energy at our disposal. The mind has a limitation that it can be conscious of one thing at a time. And we have also seen that it has a tendency to uh, move from point to point, and therefore it is never steady. So there is lot of wastage of mental energy in this unproductive movement, which really doesn't result into uh, anything worthwhile of a permanent nature. Mostly we are using these instruments for worldly gains which are of a temporary nature. And this is all because we have not as yet learned to discipline our mind. Culture of the mind is important from that point of view. So, what is happening is these are the instruments of the soul. But as long as the soul has not become strong enough to control these vehicles, we have to pass through this crisis because causal body, which is the vehicle of the soul, can develop only when we gain uh, experience which can be transferred to the causal body. This causal body is the formation of causal body is the um, beginning of human evolution. But in the earlier stages, it is not um, strong because there is very little material as such which can build the causal body, and that material comes in the form of essence of experiences gained by the personality, and they are transferred out of that only such things as will be useful for the building up of the causal body. As long as we are driven by worldly desires, the experience we gain in fulfillment of those desires is not really worthwhile for building up the causal body. Therefore, this sublimation of the mind is important because then we will undertake such activities which will really serve the purpose of strengthening the causal body and in turn the ego. It is only the strong ego which can control the personality. Strong individuality can control the personality. As long as personality is strong, there is no possibility of the advantage of the energy which is available for all human beings at the level of individuality. The will, wisdom, activity, these are actually the sources of that energy coming from above. And as long as we have not created a channel between the Buddhic level and the astral plane, this energy is not really available to the personality. And as long as the personality doesn't work um, in the direction of activities which are really necessary for the development of the soul, this channel will remain blocked forever. Therefore, this is a critical stage where mental discipline is required, which will really stop all useless wastage of mental energy. We must see that how our mind is working. Therefore, that observation of the mental activities in an impartial, detached, objective manner is essential. We have seen that when we start observing in a detached manner, that process itself is of great help in reducing the movements which all the while go on in the mental body and which is the main cause of drainage of the essential energy in wasteful activities. If we are conscious of the wasteful activities, not only of the mind, but all three bodies, physical body, astral body, lower mental body, we are accustomed to certain kind of habits and activities performed with those habits, mostly unconsciously, unknowingly, and as a result, we get tired, we get exhausted, there is loss of enthusiasm to take up activities. This is one part. And another, those who are enthusiastic enough, they are using their energy mostly for the worldly purposes. So there is no doubt development of the lower vehicles, but there is no opening of the channel for reception of energy from the higher levels. So we must be watchful to see how the mind functions, and that is possible only if we are able to objectify our mind, which means we must be able to separate the mind from the self. When there is identification of the self and the mind, we really feel that whatever is going on in the mind is the activity of the self, though it may not be so. Many times, mind by habit goes on certain habitual movements of thinking, and similar is also the case of other vehicles, even physical body. We may be accustomed to make certain movements uh, which are many times meaningless, useless, but habits compel us to perform those kind of activities. So, are we really watchful, conscious about that? Getting angry on flimsy grounds, waste of energy of the astral body. Can we not control this kind of things? Being envious of others, hating others, being cruel, committing violence, habits. We have become like that, and we call it as our character. Character as such is not anything characteristic of an individual. Character is a, an end product of the repetitive activities performed in the past over a period of time and turning them into habits. And that's why we say habits make a man. Character. So, if we are watchful about that, then we can change our character also. So, it says, as Krishnamurti says, if we are mindful of this wastage of energy which we have, then everybody can become a good, productive individual, a good, disciplined citizen. The problems of discipline really are not there. That energy itself is a creative energy, and as it flows, it creates its own paths. Um, he gives an example of the river. The water flows, uh, and while flowing, it creates its own bank on either side, so that it will never cross those banks. So it is a self-imposed discipline which comes in a person who is mature enough so far as the growth of these various vehicles is concerned. But our emphasis on imposed discipline really many times takes away the freedom of a person, individual, to grow in a natural way. And when we impose discipline, we really block the flow of that energy which is there in everyone. So we must think, even in education, how we can find an outlet for that energy and development of that flow of energy throughout, so that it will reflect to activities of all our vehicles, not only physical, astral, mental. So that is a kind of discipline which has to be carried out systematically so that our mind becomes pure and strong. Why objectifying it is necessary? Because we must understand the difference between the self, which is a controller actually, and the control, which are the vehicles of the personality. But this can come only when we are able to objectify uh, our bodies and see them as separate from the self. Then we will notice all our involuntary movements, particularly involuntary movements of the mind. We can study our natural tendencies. We can study our characteristics. And then we can really decide with our ability to discriminate whether those tendencies and characteristics are really helpful in the long run. When I say long run, I mean really in the light of the purpose of our life, not just short term objectives of worldly life, like getting position, getting power, getting prestige, all these kinds of things which we possess but which we cannot carry along with us. Something that we can carry along with us from incarnation to incarnation should be the object in our life, because that is only that will really help the growth of the cell, that will make self stronger, and that will really make the soul the controller of the vehicles, so that the controller so that the vehicles will not dominate. But this requires us to observe our own behavior. We must develop a habit of how we carry out our daily activities. If we develop that habit of doing everything every day with one pointedness, then naturally the habit develops into a character that should become our character. Or this is also principle which can be applied to meditation. Normally in meditation, we do it for half an hour a day. During that time, we try to discipline our mind. But that kind of exercise, if it is not followed by um, consistency of behavior in applying the same mind in our day to day activities, small and great, irrespective of the importance of the activity, then only we will discipline our mind for the higher purposes. So that will help us to develop mastery over the mind. Many times we carry unnecessary stress and strain. That is our habit. We worry, there is anxiety, mother is anxious about her child returning home because he is late. One doesn't think whether my worry will really helpful to the child who may be in difficulty genuine, but whether my worrying at home will it solve the problem of the child? No, in fact, it is likely to create problems for the child because we worry. That may create an aura which makes the things difficult for the child. So we must change these kinds of habits, which may be there because of our love, because of our genuine concern. But uh, it doesn't lead us to solve the problem. It can create more problem. So we must develop habits which will remove these kind of unnecessary strains, stresses, and that is possible if we develop this habit of doing everything with dedication and concentration. There should be constant selection of thoughts entering the mind. Here we must realize that all that mind thinks are not our own thoughts, thoughts of the self. Many times they are the thought forms, thought currents floating around and trying to find an opportunity of entry into our mind. If our mind is sympathetic to those thoughts, they can find easy entry into our mind. And uh, such thoughts um, find a place in our mind, and then we start thinking on those lines, and naturally we attract those thoughts uh, which are more sympathetic to our own thinking. So, if we don't modify our thinking, they will continue even if they are undesirable for our growth on longer terms. Therefore, this is possible also by self observation. Self observation results in, as I mentioned earlier, reducing the moments of the thoughts in the mind. We can thereby able to have better observation and understanding of those thoughts, and this practice develops into an ability of the mind to control the involuntary entry of the external thoughts into our mind, because then there is that consciousness, that understanding, that discrimination between which thought is really helpful, which thought is of no use, and which thought is harmful. So we must develop that vibratory capacity in our mental body, which will respond only to useful thoughts, remain neutral to the thoughts which are useless, and there must be a determined effort to ensure that harmful thoughts find no entry into our mind. We can be conscious of only one thing or one thought at a time. So, if there are harmful thoughts, it is uh, possible to make mind foolproof against the harmful thoughts by consciously pondering over opposite thoughts which are really useful, and which can neutralize the effect of the harmful thoughts. This, of course, is not an easy task in the beginning, but deliberate practice over a period of time, again and again, will definitely develop that capacity into the mental body. Mental body will, after some time, stop responding to all such thoughts which are harmful or even undesirable. So, only good thoughts will enter the mind. That will solve our problem to a great extent. We should then eliminate all thoughts of sensuality, thoughts of hatred, thoughts of revenge, thoughts of jealousy, pride, so that noble thoughts, pure thoughts are not mingled with these kinds of undesirable thoughts. We can um, make the image by our own voluntary efforts to take place of such undesirable thoughts, and if the mind could be fixed on such thoughts, the undesirable thoughts remain in the background, and in the course of time they become weak and they disappear. On the other hand, if we think of removing such thoughts from the mind, we are giving undue importance to those thoughts. We are also strengthening thoughts even by refusing to accept them, because we are paying attention to them, maybe for their removal. This paying of attention also should be replaced by paying attention to opposite thoughts, so that undesirable thoughts find no place in our mind. The principle which should be borne in mind is mind should be conscious of one thing at a time. So turning of the thoughts is very much uh, desirable technique to be mastered. That will take care of the thoughts which are intruding into the mind against our desire, and that requires constant alertness, not to pay attention but to ignore them. Such thoughts should be ignored by or should be eliminated by uh, not paying attention to them, and develop a positive attitude of what is essential. Focus must be on essential things. That ensures good mental health also, because we store a lot of energy which is otherwise wasteful, and that makes us more efficient to handle and meet difficulties and trials in life. At advanced stage, that is when we develop ability to concentrate and meditate, there are degrees. Degree of concentration varies between wide range. There is a progression in depth also. And when this process takes place, one becomes oblivious of self and surroundings. As long as we are mindful about the self and surroundings, we really don't objectify the thing. This is what we can find even in the most successful men of the world. They do their work with so much of dedication and intensity that they totally, um, we can say, surrender themselves to the work they do. They do work like worship, so that there is a total absence of self awareness, and there is total self surrender to the task. Like scientists who are involved in the research work may totally forget their hunger, their thirst, their presence even. So much they are involved into their work. So we must also deliberately perhaps involved into activities which will um, make us sufficiently strong to go through these kind of exercises of mental gymnastics, like um, mastery. It is said that it becomes an a efficient, obedient instrument of the soul if we um, put them to such kind of activities. We must not underestimate our own strengths. We can take up tasks which may be little beyond our capacity, but when we really do that, we extend our capacities gradually because there is uh, a dormant energy which is stored at the higher levels. And unless we really develop the habits of taking up jobs which involve difficulty, challenge, even uncertainties and risks, and we must also develop a capacity to find out new ways and means of doing the things. Generally, we are used to follow the same modes and patterns we are used to because it is naturally easy and secure to go that way. So, generally, most of the practical men go by that way. But sometimes we should be ready to take risk. Maybe there are uncertainties, there are possibilities of failure, but ultimately there is nothing like final failure. Failure is a step towards success, as we say more often, because it is only while failing that we develop certain capacities. We also develop that discriminatory power when we use such ways and means to which we are not accustomed. So, if we carry out such exercises where we develop a mental mastery in being able to set on any task for any length of time till it is completed, then we will experience that we have the ability to do it. It is not impossible as we feel in the beginning. It is perhaps a kind of limitation which we ourselves has put around us, and therefore we are not prepared to cross those self-imposed limitations. This is also a characteristic of mind which we must realize that there is nothing like limitation imposed by anybody else upon us. Most of the time, it is a self imposed limitation only. Many times, these are the things existing in our subconscious. That's why we are not aware of those things. What we suppress, what we do not allow a free expression, goes into the subconscious. But going into subconscious is only uh, a kind of keeping it out of sight and out of mind. But it still remains there. And separation is always accompanied with energy. And that energy always awaits for an outlet. And generally, it may not appear in the same form again. It takes different forms. And therefore, we fail to really recognize the cause of those kinds of um, uh, eruptions or symptoms. Um, so, there is a need to ensure that we do what we think we should do. Many times there is also uh, kind of tendency to think of many things which we want to do, but which we don't do. And such things also remain suppressed because we create an energy, but we really do not allow that energy to find an expression. Therefore, uh, Annie Besant has once said, if you don't want to act, don't think. Thinking without action is harmful. And that is what really creates complexes, what in psychoanalysis we call complex. People many times have developed complex because of this suppressed energy in the subconscious. So we must be ready to give an expression to what we have thought. While thinking, we should think only of those things which uh, our limitations permit us to do. Don't think of something uh, just because our imagination permits us to think of that. Think of things which our existing capacities are enough to really face and produce results. Of course, we can always take a risk of going little beyond. As I mentioned earlier, there is enough energy, um, but finding an opportunity of expression. So we must create opportunities of expression for that latent or dormant energy. Then there is a flow of energy from above to the lower levels. Then personality becomes strong for the purposes of the soul. Normally, personality is strong, but it is for the purposes of the its own purposes, worldly purposes. But when this change occurs, when we don't allow any complexes to develop, when the complexes melt away, the obstructions which we have created also are removed, and there is a free flow of energy, and there is naturally much more enthusiasm, efficiency, um, and capacity to perform tasks which we have not undertaken uh, earlier. So these are the capacities which we possess, but we have not realized that capacity. We have not developed that confidence to perform what we have not done in the past. We always think that we have reached our level of capacity, but that is a wrong presumption um, because we are reluctant to give up the comfort zone which we have entered. There is no doubt discomfort in adopting such means where we decidedly give up our old habits, acquire new habits, find unknown resources, ways and means which we want to try. This attitude itself leads us to the um, search of truth, because one who is not prepared to adopt this kind of attitude in life probably closes the doors to the search for himself. So why should we be afraid of? Why should we feel insecure? Why should there be fear? These are the things which must be meditated upon. Uh, and then we realize that we have ourselves created all these notions. There is nothing really of we should afraid of. Once this openness comes, then fear goes away. Then confidence grows. Then you move on the task which you have undertaken. Normally, ordinary man always thinks of completion of the task, success of the task, but a person who is really uh, keen about development of his own hidden strengths never bothers about these things. He believes in work itself and does it with full energy capacity available at his disposal. In doing that, he is prepared to face suffering, pain, um, discomfort, whatever, because he doesn't think of those adversities at all. He only derives satisfaction that he is able to do what he has decided or thought of doing. So, thought must be converted into action in order that we get additional supply of energy from higher planes. There is also a need of developing an ability of abstract thinking. A degree of abstraction is necessary to penetrate into innermost meaning and significance of things. If we think only in concrete terms, things of shape and form and color, then we limit our growth to the level of lower mind. If we really want to develop intuition, then we must develop this habit of abstract thinking, ability to imagine, ability to think of loftier, noble things, which could be within our reach if we really try with dedication, patience, persistence, and without expecting results and return. We must develop that mentality of deriving satisfaction in work itself, the ability to work in a right manner uh, with the full enthusiasm and continue it till completion without much bothering how long it takes, when really it will materialize. Because many times, many people may have different backgrounds. Some people may get quick results, some people may take long time. Never compare with others who might be great achievers. But of course, their example should be an inspiring thing, but not for comparison, but for the confidence in the hidden strength and potentials which everyone possesses. They are not the gifted persons who are successful. They must have worked for it in the past and attain those potentialities and capacities. And we can also be no exception to that rule. So, that power of abstraction has necessarily to be cultivated. According to modern psychology, concentration is keeping mind moving within predetermined narrow circle. This is what the modern psychology says as focus. So, this naturally presumes a boundary. Moving within predetermined circles mean we put conditions, we put boundaries, we put limitations. But the Eastern psychology or the psychology of yoga differs from that. It is possible to fix mind on a single idea without wavering, unaffected by external impacts. That is the Eastern psychology. And that is what is utilized in the practice of yoga. So it is possible to fix the mind. It is we need not accept the theory that mind, it is the nature of the mind to uh, move, and we can only control the movement within certain limits. It has been practiced by yogis, and it has been proved generations after generations of yogis or sadhakas or adepts or for theosophy, our Mahatmas. They have confirmed these things that we can um, keep the mind focused on single idea without wavering, without impacts of the external stimuli, and for any length of time. This is possible. And then we know the theory of yoga where we can reach the state where we can transcend all illusions. We can gain knowledge of reality when, after passing through several stages of samadhi, sampratnyat samadhi, asampratnyat samadhi, seedless, sabija samadhi, nirbija samadhi. All those stages are indicative of a growing mind, uh, journey of consciousness from physical level to the higher, subtler levels. So this can be done. Perhaps this might not have been accepted by the modern psychology, but this has been achieved, accomplished by Eastern yogis, and perhaps now, after the yoga has become popular in Western countries, there may be many Westerners who have confirmed uh, these findings of the Eastern yogis. So then it is possible to get glimpses of the reality, and that stage, once a man reaches, then he comes back to a normal state, but with uh, confidence which he had never experienced before. So those impressions of entering that level of consciousness, even once in a while in lifetime, leaves its impact and impression forever. So even during the normal life also, such a person will not face the problems which are faced by ordinary men at the mental level, suffering from anxiety, stress, strain. Such yogis, they enjoy perfect mental health, and that is the technique of the spiritual yoga. Uh, I think Gupta ji, we have um, come to the end of the session. Um, shall I stop here?
Yes, brother, if you have concluded, then it's okay.
Yeah. So there is one more point which um, I will mention before concluding. That is the purification of mind and elimination of distortions causing hindrance. What meditation does? Meditation accelerates purification process to a high degree. It is the vibration of the mental body at high rate by intense thinking of spiritual thing. When we do that, it results into influx of powerful spiritual forces from the higher planes into the mental body. There is a dual process, the process which is connected with um vibrations of matter according to the type of matter and the size of the atoms or molecules. So, our mental body uh, responds according to the material with which it is built. But it is possible for a sadhaka to alter the constitution of the mental body by definite process of thinking, pondering, meditating over things, whereby you make the mental body vibrate at a certain frequency so that it is possible to retain those particles which can vibrate at a very high frequency and drop those particles which can vibrate at a lower frequency. Lower frequency generally corresponds with the worldly things. Higher frequency and density corresponds with the higher planes. So meditation is a purposeful activity for um, the constitution of the mental body, purify it, refine it in the desired manner. So, if we regularly meditate for certain amount of time, we can bring about change in the constitution of body, make the mental body foolproof against the undesirable thoughts entering into the mind, and also make it sensitive and sympathetic enough to um, those which are desirable. So it becomes a process of accepting only those thoughts and not getting affected by adverse thoughts. Such a person can move under any conditions, any surroundings, without getting adversely affected. That's why a beginner cannot take this risk as long as he has not become foolproof so far as certain kinds of adverse vibrations are concerned. But once you develop your various vehicles and once there is sufficient development of the causal body because of the practice of the noble high thoughts, you can move freely. Even in the past, you may have a background of a weak character that will not disable you from moving freely into into surroundings where there is a possibility of adverse effect on you. So a drunkard who has come out of those past habits, but he has practiced enough uh, by meditation and by his daily living, has been able to purify and strengthen and refine his mental body, can even move back into a bar or into the company of drunkards without getting adversely affected. But till then, he has to be careful. You should not take that risk. But this is an example which shows that we can cultivate mind and strengthen it to a level where we will live a life like a yogi, where uh, we understand the serious problems of life, we understand the purpose of life, and we attain that goal of satyan nasti paro dharma, to attain to the truth. So that is really the dharma or religion which we have to attain in life. And that is possible by following this mental discipline, where this dual process which I just explained of strengthening the mind by rich particles of mental matter and removing all undesirable matters, we can really develop a strong, refined mind. So I think here I will um, end my lecture, and now perhaps you are free to comment on it.
Yeah, yes, thank you very much, brother. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Rajiv. Yes.
Thank you, really. So, are there any questions regarding brother's talk, or if there are any particular comments on the topic? You're welcome. So, brother, I think your talk was quite lucid and clear, and therefore there are no questions. And with this, I think we'll conclude our meeting today.
Okay.
Thank you very much again. Uh,
Thanks,
let's,
Rajiv. Yes.
yes, thank you, thank you. So, we'll finish our meeting today with the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden love, embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So, thank you, brother. Thank you to all who have attended the meeting today. Thank you. The meeting is closed now. Thank you.